Matters. How are you ladies today?
Fine. We're great. This is Helen Stapleton, and you're listening to Common Sense Matters. This is a radio show for the Franklin County Democratic Women. We're on every second and fourth Thursday of the month. And on this week's show, we're going to be interviewing candidate for State Rep 39th District, CommonSenseMatters5. And she is a brave woman. She just stepped up, out of a sense of duty, and we are so happy to have her running. But before we start interviewing Ms. Adams, I'm going to give y'all a few announcements that we have for the Franklin County Democratic Party and Franklin County Democratic Women. It's a long list, so get out your pen and paper and your calendar, all right. So first thing coming up is this Friday on May 11th at 5 p.m. is a barbecue meet and greet fundraiser for Eddie Clark, who's running for candidate for who is a candidate for Franklin County Mayor. So it's going to be this Friday, May 11th at 5 p.m. at the Red Roof Pavilion at Winchester City Park. So it's mostly going to be outside, but they wanted to have a rain venue. So the Red Roof Pavilion, right there on the lake at Timms Ford. I'm sure everybody listening to my voice has run into Eddie Clark at some point in their lives, but in case you live under a rock, Eddie Clark is running for county mayor. He is a lifelong resident of Franklin County, born and raised here in Franklin County. I can't say that. His family actually has been in Franklin County since the early 1800s, so he knows this area very well, like the back of his hand. He's a small business owner. He's been in business here for 37 years. He is currently a county commissioner and chairman of the Franklin County Commission, a family man, a National Guardsman, and he has just been an excellent steward of our county's resources over the years. During his time as head of the county commission, working with Mayor Stewart, we have not had one penny of tax increases, and yet we have built a brand new high school. We have built a brand new justice center, and are expanding our jail, all through just sort of good management, good stewardship, rearranging stuff, getting loans at just the right time. Never once had to ever raise taxes, and yet we've gotten lots of nice new things in our county. So it just shows what good management does. So anyway, if you would like to support Eddie Clark or meet Eddie Clark or just have some good free barbecue, come out to the Red Roof Pavilion, Winchester City Park, this Friday at 5. Okay. Then Saturday morning at 8:30, there will be a silent Condoleezza Rice, our former Secretary of State under George Bush and former National Security Advisor to George Bush, will be the baccalaureate speaker at Sewanee's University of the South graduation. Well, actually, their baccalaureate service on Saturday morning. And that starts at 10, but we're going to have a silent protest against her. I'm sure she's a lovely person, one-on-one, but she was instrumental in, I would say, misleading our country into the Iraq War. It was completely a war of choice. They chose to do this. It's not something that we had to do. And our country has been paying the price for that invasion ever since. We have soldiers coming home every day with PTSD, traumatic brain injury, and not to mention what it's done to the Iraqi people. They have ISIS over there. We didn't have ISIS before 2003 when we went and invaded them. So anyway, there will be a silent protest against her. Now, we're not going to raise a ruckus. This is graduation weekend, and we want to, honor the families who are there just for the graduation, so there won't be a lot of noise. We're just simply going to stand across the street from All Saints Chapel and hold a sign, whatever you think your sign should say, just saying that, we do not appreciate her role in selling the country on the Iraq War. So just please be silent and respectful if you come. So anyway, that will be at 8:30 in the morning on Saturday at Thompson Union, which is across the street from All Saints Chapel, 735 University Avenue in Sewanee. And my own daughter is graduating, but I will be at her graduation, and I will also be at the protest for a little while. My daughter said she didn't mind. In fact, she might be there with me. Okay, more stuff on Saturday. So lots of barbecue this weekend. Sharon Adams, who's sitting next to me, is having her campaign kickoff this Saturday, May 12th, at 5 to 7 on Bennett Lake
That's 1758 Bennett Lake Road.
Yeah, 1758 Bennett Lake Road. So if you need to Google map that or whatever, that's 1758 Bennett Lake Road, and that's in Whitwell, right?
Yes.
Okay, and it will be at another of her friend's house who is also a retired teacher. There will be barbecue and all the fixings, and you'll get to meet Sharon and find out about her campaign. Okay, and then on Saturday, May 19th at 9 a.m., the Franklin County Democratic Party will be having its monthly meeting. So the Franklin County Democratic Party meets every third Saturday of the month at 9 a.m. at the Annex. Rain or shine, I think in the past 2 years we've only canceled once. So it's Franklin County Democratic Party meeting Saturday, May 19th at 9 a.m. at the Annex, and we've got a lot to discuss. We will have a radio show again in 2 weeks from now on Thursday, May 24th, on this very same radio show. Roy Herron, who was a former state senator for Tennessee, wrote a great book called Religion and Politics, because he's a very he was a Democratic state senator. He even ran for governor. And people he was always hearing, the conventional wisdom, oh, you can't be a Democrat and still be a Christian. Well, he wrote a great book using scripture and, refuting all those points about, yes, you can be any religion and be a Democrat. You can be a Christian and be in any party. Those two things. Anyway, so Betty Fraley will be on the air talking about being a Christian and a Democrat. Then on Saturday, June 16th, is the state Democratic Party, Tennessee Democratic Party, is having its annual fundraiser, the Jackson Day Dinner. And the keynote speaker this year is going to be Doug Jones, who was just elected as U.S. Senator from Alabama. So that should be exciting, because that was a pretty big upset that he did there. I mean, whoever thought that there would be a Democratic U.S. Senator
in Alabama.
From the state of Alabama? So maybe he'll have some lessons about how we can repeat that here in our state. So that's going to be in Lebanon, Tennessee, Saturday, June 16th at 6 o'clock at the Wilson County Expo Center. And if you need, now this is a little bit expensive. Tickets are $150 each, but this is the Tennessee Democratic Party's big annual fundraising push. It's our one big kind of fancy thing that we do a year. Democrats generally don't like this sort of pay-to-play big fancy things, but we do one per year, and it is a really special and great night. Good food, and so and you'll meet Democrats from all over the state, Memphis, Knoxville, all over the place. So anyway, the Franklin County Democratic Party is going to have a table there, and so if you would like to buy a seat at our table, please get in touch with Betty Fraley or myself. Okay, and then the last thing is on Saturday, June 23rd at noon, we're having Democratic Family Fun Day in the park. So that's going to be at Red Roof Pavilion at Winchester City Park. We're going to have all the candidates there. We're going to have hot dogs, hamburgers, everything that goes with that, and we're going to have games like cornhole, horseshoes, maybe some field day games like three-legged race, potato sack race, things like that. So we really hope that y'all will come out for that. That's Saturday, June 23rd from noon to 3 at the Winchester City Park. Just an old-fashioned rally with the candidates, and we hope y'all can make it to that. So those are my long, boring announcements, and now let's get to know Sharon. So, Sharon, can you just tell us a little bit about your bio, your history, where you grew up, your family, that kind of stuff?
Okay. Good. First, I'd like to say good morning to all Franklin County residents, and thank you, Helen, for the opportunity to be able to give my views on my favorite subjects. My name is CommonSenseMatters5, and I'm running for the District 39 House seat. I'm a retired teacher, and I come from a family of teachers. My parents were teachers, and my brother was a teacher, but now he is the principal at Sequatchie County High School, and also he's vice president of the TSSAA, which is the board that oversees all high school athletics in the state of Tennessee. Okay. And education was really, and so my husband is also a retired teacher. He was a band director in Red Bank and Hamilton County schools. Education was so important to my parents that out of 60 years of schooling between my brothers and my sisters and I, we only missed 8 days of school.
Wow.
I didn't miss any days of school in 12 years, and I had a sister that did not.
So you always got that perfect attendance.
Always the perfect attendance.
That's
I might
great.
have not had the best grades, but I had the perfect attendance.
You were there.
And I grew up in Dunlap, Tennessee, which is a rural area in the valley, and I attended Sequatchie County High School and graduated from there. Then I went on to Tennessee Tech University, got my bachelor's from there, and then I got my master's at Tennessee Knoxville.
Okay. Wow, so your mother's a teacher, your father's a teacher, your husband's a teacher, and your brother's a teacher.
Yes.
Wow.
We do have one. My older brother is an engineer,
okay.
So we have something besides education in the family.
Mm-hmm. But you need a lot of education to be an engineer.
Oh, yeah,
so
sure do.
He's familiar with it. Okay, and then you grew up in Dunlap, and all your college was in Tennessee,
right?
In different parts
yes.
of Tennessee.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. All right. And where do you live now? Do you live in Dunlap or what?
No, I live in Marion County.
What town?
Well, it's actually considered Whitwell or Crossroads.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. And you're running for the State House District 39. Now, first of all, tell the listeners what areas of Tennessee are in District 39.
Okay, that would be if you're going from east to west, it starts at the Hamilton County line. It goes across Suck Creek Mountain through Crossroads, Whitwell, up Whitwell Mountain to Monteagle, Sewanee, Franklin County, and Moore County.
So it's all of Moore County?
No, there's a strip of, oh yes, it's all of Moore County,
okay.
But not all of Franklin.
Yeah, there's a little strip at the bottom of Franklin and Marion that's part of
right.
92,
92,
right?
yes.
Yeah. So it's basically all of Marion, most of Franklin, and all of Moore.
All of Moore, yes.
No, sorry. Most of Franklin, most of Marion, and all of Moore.
Yes.
Okay.
It's the northern part of Marion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so currently we are represented by David Alexander, and he's
yes.
stepping down.
Uh-huh.
And so your opponents will be either Iris Rudder
yes.
or Sloan Stewart.
Sloan Stewart, or there's a guy named Helton running also.
Oh, okay. I wasn't aware of that.
I think he's from Marion County.
Okay. So after the primary on August 2nd, you'll know who your opponent
right.
will be. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And what made you decide to run? You jumped in pretty late in the game.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've decided to run because I saw a need for more women to take part in our Tennessee legislature. Mm-hmm. I felt like that our needs were not always being met by the current legislature, and I wanted mm-hmm. to change that. And also, I feel that state government needs more education. Mm-hmm. Educators mm-hmm. included in the legislature, because they're the ones who know what our schools need mm-hmm. and what our school districts need.
Okay. Do you feel the current school systems are receiving the support that they need?
No, I across the counties, I see a lot of school classrooms that don't have the needed materials they need, such as books, computers, and in order to optimize our children's education, we need to have all those, the students need to have all those things. We must also, when I was teaching, I'm not sure this is such a practice now, but the schools would sign waivers, and those waivers would allow more students in a classroom. Mm-hmm. So sometimes the teacher versus the classroom ratio was real bad.
Oh, so they don't. Okay, what is the ratio? 24 to 1 or something?
Oh, I sometimes had 30, 31 kids in the classroom.
Wow.
but now that's been a number of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also worried about vouchers. There's been a lot of debate about vouchers lately. I know that the House has turned down the vouchers, but it was passed by the state Senate. I'm afraid that vouchers will take away much-needed money from our rural school districts, because in our rural school districts, students can't always go to charter schools because they're not available. And also the inner-city schools, our students would not be able to go because of their situation.
Yeah, I mean, I gave the example for this area. If we were to currently, now I'm not sure if they're okay. Good Shepherd is. Ashley, do you know if Good Shepherd is still operating as a school?
I believe so.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, there are very few choices for private school here, and so the Franklin County Board of Education spends roughly $5,000 per child. So if you got a voucher, that's what it would be for. So you would have $5,000 to go to a private school. Well, St. Andrews costs $15,000 a year.
Right.
So if you gave someone a voucher and say, here, go to St. Andrews, well, you've got your $5,000 paid for, but that still leaves $10,000. So the only people from Franklin County who would be able to take advantage of that voucher offer are people who are already well off, who have $10,000 loose change in their pocket to spend on their kids' education. And in the meantime, you're taking away $5,000 from Franklin County High. So,
public schools.
Yeah, so let's say that at least, say, 10 more well-off kids took those vouchers and went to St. Andrews, then now Franklin County High is short $50,000, and that's a teacher's salary for the whole year. You know, I mean, so you're hurting Franklin County High. You're helping students who are already pretty well off, and you're doing nothing at all to help kids whose family could never begin to afford to make up the difference of what a voucher would cover. So, yeah, I think. Like I said, it's hurting the people who need it most, and it's helping the people who need it the least. Yeah. So I'm very against vouchers. I know in some places that there are schools, private schools that cost less than $15,000 a year, but it's pretty. That's generally pretty much about what a private school is costing now. So
and let me say, I firmly believe that our children are our most precious resource, and all Tennessee children need to have the proper education, not just what's thrown out to them. And another thing that I'm very concerned about is the safety of our children. I want our schools to be safe and not have to worry about attacks on them.
Right, yeah. My son went to summer camp with one of those girls in Parkland that got killed.
Oh, really? Oh.
Alyssa Al-Hadaf. She was at summer camp with him. That was a horrible situation. Well, we do have SROs here in our county.
Yes,
and,
that's good.
At Franklin County, they even have an actual detective working in the schools.
Wow.
And that's not, and he's not there so much to protect against a shooter, but to figure out what's going on with drugs and things like that at the schools.
How many counselors does your high school have?
I don't know. I'm not sure. They do have one. They do have at least one, I'm sure.
But they're so inundated with tests and things like that they don't have time to counsel students.
Yeah, so how do you feel about testing? I know that's a big issue around here.
Well, I always said that not one test does a student make. And I firmly believe that teachers are better equipped to know how to educate students rather than one big, huge test drawn up by folks who are not necessarily educators. And it's a real touchy subject, but I just believe that the less tests, the better.
Well, we are right on the same page about that. Okay. Teachers' pay is a hot topic around the country right now. I've heard you speak about a living wage and the issues with our current minimum wage. This is a topic that affects all our workers in Tennessee, not just teachers. Tell us your thoughts and goals on this topic.
Well, when I was a young teacher before I was married, I always worked 2 jobs because the teacher's salary did not provide enough for the living wage, such as food, transportation, and housing. And salaries have risen somewhat, but I still think teachers need raises. And that brings me to the fact that Tennessee currently has no minimum wage.
Yep, so
and we use the
$7.25
for the and that could also be said to the same needs as those folks working minimum wage jobs. I think Tennessee needs to create a minimum wage which would be better efficient for all Tennesseans, not just the wealthy.
Well, I've been, watching the news and seeing all these teachers striking in places like West Virginia, Oklahoma,
Arizona,
Kentucky. Was it Kentucky?
I believe Kentucky, yes.
Right, Arizona, and I think Colorado too. Yeah, like in all these red states, they've cut funding to education. And I saw pictures that they posted of just deplorable conditions in their schools, like just torn up books, broken desks, leaky ceilings. Do we have a call? Oh, okay. We have a call for Sharon. What do I do? Press number 1?
Yes.
Okay. Do I pick up the receiver? Okay. Hello.
Hello. I know you've already left vouchers, but one other disadvantage of a voucher is when that student goes to that private school and he's taking his $5,000, then when he decides that he doesn't like that, he comes back to the public school. We've lost the $5,000, but we still have to educate him. We don't get the $5,000 back.
I wasn't aware of that.
That's true.
Goodness.
I'm just sure that that's true. So that certainly is another big disadvantage. We have to educate him, but the $5,000 is gone.
Yeah. Okay. Would they maybe get it back the next year?
No, I don't think you ever get it back. I think it's gone for good.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so back to these strikes. So yeah, in these red states, they've just cut education down to the bone, and a lot of these teachers want. A lot of these teachers, well, of course, they do want a pay raise for themselves. So, you hear about them driving Ubers on the weekends and things like that. But they also just want it for the kids. They want the class sizes reduced. They want new textbooks. They want, decent food in the cafeteria. They're fighting for these kids too, not just for raises for themselves. But what have you been inspired seeing these teachers striking around the country?
Absolutely, I have. I think teachers have far too long not been paid what they deserve. And yes, some folks have said, well, they only work 9 months a year, but that's not true. I always took work home every day, about 2 or 3 hours every afternoon, and my husband would always tell me, you need to leave that at school, but I said, no, I need to be prepared for what I need to teach the children.
And then there's all these in-service things.
Yes.
Yeah, my sister-in-law is a teacher, and she's all weekend long, grading, lesson planning, all night, late into the night, grading and lesson planning and doing stuff. It's definitely not just while you're at school.
My husband was the band director there at Red Bank Middle School, and we would have the football games, and the band would play there at the games, and I'd be sitting there with my papers, grading them or planning for my next day while the football game was going on. So, yes, teachers do work hard.
Do you see anything like that happening in Tennessee? Do you see Tennessee teachers maybe one day striking like that?
At school, I know of a teacher in that taught at Red Bank Elementary School, and she was loved by all her students. Mrs. Hill was her name, and she was on a Sunday afternoon after church, went to school to work, and she actually passed away there at school while she was working. And it was just a horrible situation, but teachers go in at night, weekends, to prepare, get their classrooms ready, especially at the beginning of the year, and they need, in order to get our brightest and best teachers, we need to be competitive with other states. A lot of teachers in Hamilton County cross over into Georgia to teach because Georgia pays their teachers much better than Tennessee does.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were saying that in Oklahoma, a lot of them were crossing over into Texas to teach because Texas pays their teachers really well.
Where I taught at Red Bank Middle, our school was horrible. We had rats, we had doors that were locked by chains on them, and finally they did build a new school, but they built that after I retired, of course.
I just cannot understand cutting taxes for millionaires and then cutting services to our children. Like, what does this millionaire need with another 2 or 3 more million? I mean, so they can stick it in a Swiss bank account somewhere. I mean, why are we doing this?
They took so much money out of the education budget. Was it $600 million? I'm not sure, but I'll find that out.
Yeah, I mean, it really just shows, a budget is a moral document, right?
Yes.
I mean, if you value billionaires over children,
Meals on Wheels.
What does that say about our country? I can't understand it.
That's one of the reasons I decided to run, because I thought things needed to change somewhat, and I hope to be able to do that.
Well, and since 2010, things have changed a lot for teachers. That's when the big Tea Party wave came in Tennessee. They passed all these laws, basically crippling the TEA, the Tennessee Education Association, taking away the teachers' rights to collective bargaining. There used to always have to be a teacher on the board, the Tennessee board or whatever, and now there's no longer a teacher, representing on that board. They've done everything they can to
defund or deregulate the public schools,
and make it so that teachers have to go in and, I'm sorry, I'm not one of these confident women. I would much rather a union or a professional organization collectively bargaining on my behalf than having to go in up against a boss and negotiate for a better wage. And they think that each teacher individually should have to go in and negotiate his or her wages. I would much rather a union do that for me because I'm too meek, I guess.
I was always a member of the HCEA and the TEA and the NEA.
What is HCEA? Oh, Hamilton County.
Hamilton County.
Oh, okay. But those organizations ever since 2010 are pretty much they're toothless. They have no power anymore at all. And this is the result of people voting for Republicans, I'm sorry to say. That's what Republicans do, is they are anti-unions and pro big corporations and millionaires. That's who they favor. Okay, let's totally switch topics now to health care. We spend a lot of time on this show talking about health care. Do you believe health care is a right or a privilege?
Oh, I absolutely believe that health care is a right for all Tennesseans.
Okay. I think it depends on the context. If you are in I've lived in really poor countries, I've lived in Africa, I've lived in the Philippines and places like that. And if you're in a country that is really, really poor and can barely afford, things, I can understand the country not providing that to its citizens. But when you are in a country as wealthy as ours, to see our government, like I said, giving tax cuts to billionaires, spending whatever they want on wars, necessary or unnecessary, and yet they won't do what every other country in Europe and, all over the world, not just Europe, all over Asia, all over the Middle East, even some countries in Africa have universal health care, but not our country. I cannot understand that when we could afford it so easily. There is money in this country. It's just not being directed towards helping people. There's plenty of money in this country. And I think people really don't understand the difference between single-payer healthcare and single-provider healthcare. So England has single-provider healthcare. That's where the government is providing all of the building the hospitals and giving the healthcare. That's single-provider. But what we want in this country is single-payer. And that's where the insurance and the paying for it would come from the government, but the providing of health care would come from private hospitals, like we have now.
Yeah.
Right now we have private doctors, in their private practices. You go to them and you go to a private hospital, blah blah blah. But we're using for-profit insurance companies. With single payer, the hospitals and the doctors would still look the same, but rather than going through these blood-sucking insurance companies, it would be the government providing the health insurance. And so, from to the consumer, everything would look the same, but the paying for it would just be all streamlined and efficient. So everyone likes to scare people in the U.S. against universal health care by saying, oh, you'll have to go to these horrible, drab government hospitals and government, and that's just not at all the case. What we want is single payer, but not single provider. I would still go to Dr. Petrilla down the street from me, who's been in practice all along, but just the paying for it would be streamlined and efficient. You wouldn't be going through these millions of insurance companies. When you think about your doctor's office, how many of those staff are there to actually give health care, and how many are there negotiating and wrangling with private insurance companies? It's about half and half. It's just crazy.
A lot of doctors complain about all the paperwork that they have to do.
And they wouldn't have to if they, they could get rid of all that
for
paperwork.
Each type of insurance.
Okay, let's go on to Medicaid expansion. So Tennessee has what we call the Medicaid gap, right? So if you make too much, you don't qualify for Medicaid. So if you are a conscientious person who works a low-paying job at, say, Walmart, you get up every day, you work 60 hours a week, but you don't make enough because you're so hardworking and industrious. You don't make enough for Medicaid. Now you could just sit at home on your butt all day and draw and get Medicaid, but these are people who don't believe in that. They want to get out and work every day, so then they make too much for Medicaid, but they don't make enough for private insurance and the Obama the healthcare exchanges. So these are the people we say that fall in the Medicaid gap. And if Tennessee would simply pass Medicaid expansion, we could help these people. Are you for Medicaid expansion? How do you feel about that?
Oh, yes, I'm absolutely for expanding Medicaid because I think it's the only way that we can continue to get everyone the treatments they need. And Governor Haslam has actually been trying for years to get that done, but the current legislature will not vote to do that.
And so they're basically punishing people for working.
Absolutely.
I mean, if I luckily have insurance with my job, but if I had some terrible condition like cancer or diabetes or something, I would probably just quit my job and be poor and get Medicaid. I wouldn't. Why would you go out and work all day and then still not be able to get any kind of health care? And
we're also turning away $1 billion a year to expand our health care, and which could go to Medicaid. And this is our tax-paying money that we're turning away, and it would not come out of. And to expand Medicaid, we would not have to come out of our pockets with it. It's already there.
It would be coming from the federal government.
And also, how many hospitals have we had to close down? 9 or 10? 9 hospitals within the last year in rural areas where if you get really sick, you've got a 45 minute drive to get to a hospital.
That could be life or death.
It could mean life or death, yes.
Yeah, I always tell the story about we have a little hospital in Sewanee, and one time my son had an asthma attack that was so bad, and it's just right down the street from us, and they said, oh God, if you hadn't gotten here when you got here, he would not be alive.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm very for everyone having a hospital within at least 30 to 40 minutes of their house. You know, I mean, if you had to go all the way to, I guess our nearest one would have been Winchester, but I would even those bigger hospitals like we have here in Winchester may go if they don't expand. So y'all, I mean, I hate to harp on, I know the Republicans out there, a lot of them are good people, but they are voting for things that are hurting and killing people.
Yes.
Every day.
Yes.
I mean, there are so many people who, if they had Medicaid expansion, or if we had, universal health care, things like that, there would be people alive, you know. So how can you be pro-life and let people die?
And you could also throw in the fact that prescription drugs are outrageous. I know that my husband, after he hits the donut hole, he takes about 8 medicines, but 2 of his are almost $500 a month. And being retired teachers as we are, it's really difficult to come up with that. That needs to change. And there's a lot more folks that are in work have to pay more for their medicines. And the guy that upped the drug for cancer treatment, he just exploded on the price of his drugs.
Do we have a caller? Okay. What is the number here again? 96722. Yeah, if anybody has a question for Miss Adams, please call 9672201, and I believe we have one right now. So I hit 1.
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning, caller.
Good morning. Glad to live in the country where we can have opposing views. I have some questions for you all. To talk about killing people from a party that supports abortion. I want to hear your views on sex ed. I want to hear your views on homeschooling. And I want to hear your views on gun control. I'll sit back and listen. Thank you.
Wait, can you repeat that again? Sex ed.
Your party supports abortion. Your party supports gay rights. Your party is anti-homeschool. Your party is anti-gun control. But I'd like to hear this candidate's views on those things.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't think that we were anti-homeschool.
I didn't think so either. So I really don't have a view on that one.
Okay. You don't have an opinion on it at all?
Well, I firmly believe in public schools, but if a parent chooses to educate their own child, I really don't see anything wrong with it.
Okay. I believe she also mentioned sex ed or gay rights and gun control.
Okay. Gay rights, I think all citizens of this country are citizens of this country, and they all deserve the rights as the rest of the citizens. I personally, I don't condone or I don't believe in what they do, but it's not for me to judge them. That's for God to judge.
Okay.
And then what else was there?
I think she said gun control.
Oh, I think our laws on gun control certainly need to be tightened. My husband's a hunter, or was a hunter. He's gotten a little older now and doesn't hunt quite so much because hanging out in the tree at 4 o'clock in the morning is a little bit harder these days. But
he has a gun.
Yes, and he has several guns, but he does not have any rapid firing guns because he doesn't see a need for those. We do need to have a universal background check.
Okay.
And then what else?
I believe she said that that our party is pro-choice. Okay, just because you're pro-choice doesn't mean you want every baby to die. I mean, I've had 3 babies. I love them. You know, just because you are pro-choice, they seem to think that you want every child to die. That's crazy. I want everyone who has been born to live a long, healthy life. That's me. Okay, so she's wondering, I guess, is how do you equate being pro-choice with wanting people then to have health care, I guess that's her question. I don't know.
Well,
I mean, because obviously if you want people to have health care, you want people to live.
Right.
Right. So then how can you be pro-choice if you want people to live, I guess is her question.
That's a little confusing for me.
I think the question is more of, you talk about saving people's lives, and yet you're letting babies die.
Right.
So how can you have one and you agree with one and condone the other?
You might turn that around and say, how can you want babies to live, and then, I mean, I might ask that of a Republican. How can you want fetuses to live and then let living people die?
Right.
I mean, it's a tough issue either way.
It is.
On their side and on our side.
I personally don't like abortion.
Mm-hmm.
I think, though, that a woman has the right to her own body, but it's really a tough decision, tough thing to think about. I love children, I love babies, and they're our most precious resource, like I said. But that's basically how I feel about that.
So you would never do it yourself?
No.
But you believe in letting other people make decisions for their own lives.
Right.
Okay. All right. I think we've addressed all those questions.
Okay.
I guess.
Something about sex education.
I think that played into the abortion deal.
Okay.
I think is where she was kind of going in that line of thinking, is that, to prevent maybe abortion with sex education, and what your thoughts on that would be.
Do you believe, I guess she's asking, do you believe in teaching kids about birth control in schools?
Oh, yeah. In schools, I don't know about that. I'm going to tell you, teachers have enough to do without teaching kids to grow their own food and that kind of thing. All too often we put too much on the teachers. I think that parents should be responsible for some things, and that should be one of the things that parents are responsible for.
Okay. And if we have any other callers with questions for... Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. I don't have a question for the lady assistant. I was listening as she was going down the Democratic calendar for what we were set on the calendar for the next couple of months. And as far as I'm a Democrat, but as far as protesting the graduation with Condoleezza Rice, I think it's wrong. I think it's bad timing and very distasteful. Even if your daughter agrees with that, that's in the past. We live too far in the past. Let's move away from that. Condoleezza has been gone from the White House now, 10, 11 years. Let's move past that and move to a new agenda and let those kids have their day, peaceful inquiry, no matter how important you stand. I think it's very rude, very disrespectful for you to pick this timing to hold signs on the side of the road. I think your time could be used somewhere else.
Okay, I see that point. Well, thank you. Okay. I couldn't understand a lot of what she was saying. It was a little bit garbled coming through, but I'm still going to do it. Like I said, we're not going to make noise. Anyway. Okay, going on. Let
me clarify something, though, that I said before about the abortion issue. I believe there comes a point in a baby, in a fetus's point where it should be cut off. I mean,
so no abortion after a certain amount of months. Yeah, which is pretty much what we have already.
Yes.
I think you can't get it after a certain number of months.
22, 21 or
okay, yeah. It's a horrible issue that really nobody wants to think about or have to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
But I also see so many children born to people who are not
ready
able
or
ready to
Mhm.
take care of a child, and then that child ends up being abused and neglected and
or even killed.
Mhm.
You know.
Mhm. Anyway, okay. What would you like to share with listeners is the biggest need for your campaign?
Well, of course, you know, funding is one of the most important needs for any campaign,
Mhm.
and without contributions, you can't get the tools necessary to spread your campaign,
Mhm.
and also volunteers to help spread
Mhm.
the word.
Mhm. Yeah, so we invite anyone. Do you have a website yet?
We're working on that. It will
Okay.
be votesharonadams.com.
Okay.
It's almost finished, but I do have an address, votesharonadams@gmail.com. And I'd like to add that we're having our campaign kickoff on Saturday from 5 to 7 at 1758 Bennett Lake Road, and it's at Linda Hooper's house. If you don't know who Linda Hooper is, she was the principal at Whitwell Middle School if you've never seen the paperclip story, they actually have a museum there, a railroad car from Auschwitz, and they collected paperclips for all the survivors, or all the people of the Holocaust, and
well, you know,
it's at her house on the lake. But if you've never seen the paperclip story, it's a movie out. You can probably Google it and see it.
Yeah, that's an amazing story with these kids. And you know, there's a couple of paper clips in there for my relatives.
Oh, really?
Yeah. My father's family is Jewish, and there's several members of his family that died in the Holocaust.
They just had a celebration down there. Some Jewish folks from Philadelphia came down, and they did a prayer march. We did a prayer march from the Miners Memorial up to the school where the museum is, or the car is, and it was quite a little celebration.
And I've always wanted to go see it. I can't believe I haven't been yet.
It's done real well. And also the teacher was Sandy Roberts, that she was responsible for or her and Linda were responsible for the start in the movie.
Wow. But yeah, so go to votesharonadams.com.
Yes, or votesharonadams@gmail.com.
Okay. So yes, we are really hoping that Sharon will win in November, and you have no Democratic opponent in your primary.
No.
Okay. So so when you go vote, you in the primary anyway, just put a check by her name. She'll be the only name. But in November, she will be up against either Iris Rudder, Sloan Stewart, or who's the other person?
Helton.
Okay, somebody. Helton.
Richard Helton, I think, is his name.
Sharon, you are a brave woman. This is your first time to be interviewed, right, in your campaign.
I thought at my age I wouldn't be ready to take on another adventure, but here I am.
And is your husband supportive of this?
Oh, yes, he is.
Good.
And
you got to have that.
And my husband will be cooking the barbecue, and we cook the barbecue for Kettner's Mill Country Fair every year.
Oh, okay.
And he does extremely well, so I suggest you come try it.
Okay, I will definitely try. Well, thank you so much. I believe we're out of time now, huh? Did you have one more thing you wanted to say?
If anyone would like to contribute to my campaign, they can go to Act Blue and Google Sharon Adams.
Okay.
Or put Sharon Adams in there.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we end?
I think that's about it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, and have a great day.
Okay, you too.